Everybody, welcome. Welcome as you all file in. I am Malik Lee, your president for the FPA of Georgia. This is our final webinar for the year, and I think this is a special one here. We have one of our great partners and sponsors for this year. We're going to be talking about the 529 plans and benefiting your clients, their children, and you. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. We have an impactful day for you today. Once again, we want to thank our sponsors, Community Foundation, Fairway, HyperChat, Charles Schwab, Thrivent, DPL, Heinz, Benefit Street, T. Rowe Price, TD Ameritrade, Vanguard, and our sponsor and host for today, My529. We wanted, unfortunately, due to COVID, as you all know, we couldn't get together. I know a big part of our association is networking and networking with other coworkers in the business and just bouncing ideas off of each other and just seeing a friendly face. So we're going to do something a little bit different this year. This year we wanted to have an event, and this year we're going to be doing a virtual event. We're going to be giving away over $500 in prizes. We're also going to be giving away, to include, that's a FPA of Georgia membership. We're going to be doing it Thursday, December 17th at 4 p.m. Now this will make it real special. We're going to be doing a holiday ugly sweater contest. We're also going to just have natural giveaways as well too. So if you don't wear a sweater, that's totally fine. But we want you to bring your family, bring your friends, gather around the Zoom meeting, and we're going to be doing a virtual magic show. Now and I know what you're thinking, a virtual magic show, another thing that we're going to have to doing via Zoom, that's not going to be cool. I want you to think twice about that, and I want you to watch this video and see why.
My name is Eric Hughouse, and if you're still on the fence about how impactful a virtual magic show can be for your friends, family, and coworkers, then watch this.
Oh my God!
Awesome. There you go.
Sorcery. I like
Sorcery.
I like smiles.
Oh. Oh no, 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 no.
If you want to experience reactions like that firsthand, then don't hesitate to contact me.
Well, obviously, we already contacted Eric and their team, and we are extremely excited about the magic show. And once again, this is a family event, a family affair. Friends, coworkers, everybody gather around and enjoy the show on December 17th, and also win some cool prizes as well too. Today, we want to meet our speaker, Troy Runnels. Troy is the My529 Senior Director for Strategy and Business Development. My529, Utah's 529 Educational Savings Plan, manages more than $16 billion in assets in over 435,000 accounts. Troy has been instrumental in guiding My529's significant growth through his 15-year tenure. Noted accomplishments include developing the platform to support relationships with financial advisors, hence how I met Troy, and refining the business continuity plan. Troy graduated from Brigham Young University, the great school. I love it there. The excellent accounting program. He majored in accounting. He has a master's in business administration from Utah State University and is a certified public accountant. And without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Troy, you can share yours, and we will get started with today's festivities.
Great, thanks, Malik. Well, I'm trying to do two things at once here. I don't know about those that are on the call right now that don't know Malik. I got to know him a year ago, and it's so nice to see his enthusiasm. And so you guys are in great hands this year, especially with a lot of the crazy stuff going on. It's It's definitely interesting. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we see the meeting link thing there. We don't see the presentation, but the meeting.
Oh, you don't see the presentation.
But we
Okay.
see, I think we see your screen though, but not the meeting
I picked the wrong one here. We had it before.
link. No worries, I do it all the time.
All right. Too many things open. Where did it go? There it is right there. Let's try this one more time. Share that. Kind of another monitor popping up, but while we're doing that, thank you guys for allowing me to do this presentation. It's a lot different this year. That show up, Malik? No?
Yep, there we go. Yep.
All right. It doesn't show up on mine full screen, so my eyes might be wandering off a little bit, so apologize for that. All right. So I'm not able to see the full screen. So if you have any questions, let's reach out to Malik. And then there's a couple of stopping points that I'll try to pause on those. And when I've done these presentations in the past, it's been pretty interesting because usually the next slide or two, we answer those questions. We have not done a presentation here. I usually do them across the country with this COVID happening. So this is a lot different for me. Not being able to see your guys' reactions. I usually like the interactive questions and so forth. So this makes it very interesting for me. So Malik, I'll just jump in probably a couple times just to answer questions. A few things have changed, not necessarily in 529s, but more along the lines of what's the trend, what is happening, what are people thinking with college and higher ed, with COVID-19, et cetera. So I'm going to try to address those and some things and some questions that you might get. So let's go ahead and jump into this right now. These are some of the things that we're going to go ahead and cover. I'm not one of those that likes to read completely off the slide, so I'll just leave those right there and we'll jump in and go from these. First, cost of higher education. Yes.
I'm sorry, Joe. We still see the first page. So I think this is the
Sure,
we're seeing the PDF.
To the front. It is in the front. Huh.
We're seeing the PDF, so you might have to just scroll down if you're going to use the PDF or
Give me a
cost of okay. Now we see cost of higher education. We see that.
That is really interesting. All right, full screen. Does that work now?
No, we still just see the cost of higher education.
Dude, that's really weird.
But we see it though. If you just want to scroll, that's
okay.
that should work.
Okay, let me back up here. Oop. You guys see it now?
Yep. We see you moving.
Okay, great.
Yep, okay.
All right. So this is the cost of higher education on a national level across the board, public and private universities. So someone that was born last year, so you're setting up an account for a 1-year-old, you'll see that for 4 years of public university, that's without room and board, it's about $45,000. And that's for them starting today. Tuition has been increasing at about almost a little under 6% each year. How are we going to update this slide next year? No idea. COVID has definitely thrown a lot of things into that. Our colleges and universities going to keep the same tuition. You have some of those that are doing virtual. Some are saying, why am I going to pay high amounts at Harvard if it's going to be online? But they have the infrastructure and the costs that are into that. So who knows where these numbers are going to go, but this is what we've been using in the past. But we can say that the cost has been increasing significantly over the last 10 years, 15 years. We always like to do one locally. So there for Georgia State, it's actually pretty much right in line with the public universities on a national level. But for a private university, at least for Spelman, it's lower than some of the other private universities. So from that perspective, I usually have not seen that. So at least for Spelman. But needless to say, we know the cost is increasing substantially as we go and look at the cost of higher education. There are a lot of different ways to save for higher education. 529s are one of those we're going to talk about today. It has a lot of benefits. There might be a little bias on my part, but at the same time, there's other options as well. I've seen a few articles in the last week or two talking about the Roth IRAs, but there's obviously some different caps of how much you can contribute to those, but you have a small benefit that you might be able to use those earnings towards something else, et cetera. But I'll touch a little bit on UGMA, UTMAs throughout this presentation, but again, the UGMA, UTMAs have a limitation where they are assigned to that minor or the beneficiary age of the minor age and can't be changed. But there is one benefit of 529 plans that you can use with those UGMAs that I'll talk about. Just to make sure everybody's on the same page on the 529 plans, I think most of you know this, but just to kind of level set a little bit, It's for years, it's been with higher education after high school. I started with My529, formerly the Utah Educational Savings Plan, about 15 years ago, and seen a lot of changes, both in the organization as well as within the industry. About 3 years ago now, K through 12 expenses became part of 529 plans. I will highlight this again and probably repeat it, but just as a reminder, K through 12 is for public, private, parochial schools, tuition only. So one of the confusions that I've always laughed at is I don't know of a tuition expense for a public school. So it's not fees, but it's tuition. So that the Congress did us no favors on that confusion. But it's usually just for tuition, and it's up to $10,000 per year per beneficiary. So some of the benefits here are, that, again, I won't read through all of these, but a couple I want to talk about is the financial aid. There's a lot of confusion that is in the financial aid articles. Grandparents shouldn't save because 529 plans are going to take away from it. I'm going to try to dispel that and walk through an example of that a little bit later on. And also with the estate planning tool, especially with here at year end, I'm going to give all of you that are on the call a little tip and trick that you might be able to use to take advantage of the 5-year election and actually make it 6 years. So we'll talk about a couple of things on that. Again, the earnings growth tax deferred, ultimately tax free if they're used for what the terminology we use in the industry, qualified higher education expenses. Just as a reminder, there are no income limits and no phase out limits when it comes to the 529 plan.
There are no income limits.
And I have my little notes next door, and I don't know about you, but I updated my Apple iPad, and Siri decided to really listen to my conversations. It seems like almost more calls than not, Siri decides to join in on the conversation. Apologize about that. So this is some of the trends that have been happening with 529 plans over the years. And one thing I wanted to highlight here is in 2007, 2/3 of all the 529 plan assets were actually assigned to an advisor. But then here we get into 2019, it flips where it's almost 2/3 are tied to a direct sold plan. Why is that? The consensus is early on, the broker dealers, those that use in the advisor plans jumped onto that. Virginia's 529 plans, one of the largest 529 plans in the country, that caters to the broker dealer. But as time has gone on, I think RIAs have grown and gotten more prominent. They are telling their clients to just go to this direct sold plan. The public's becoming more aware of it. Some would say the fee structure. Some would say that they just want to have more of a passive investment, kind of a, I hate to use the word set it and forget it, but kind of like a target date fund that we'll talk about a little bit, but where it automatically rebalances and so forth. So that's, I think, where we've seen some of that growth. So as a reminder, there's 3 types of plans. There's the prepaid plans where you pay for the tuition at today's rates, maybe make payments and so forth on those. And then the burden of the higher education expenses falls on the plan, and they deal with the actuaries, et cetera. So like Florida's prepaid plan, Washington's prepaid plan, et cetera. You have the advisor sold programs where those are traditionally with broker dealers where they receive commissions. And then the direct sold plan is where it's for the public. One area that hasn't really been addressed is 529 plans to support RIAs. And that's one thing that we'll talk about here and give you some tips and tricks on that in a minute as well. Just as again, as a reminder, an owner can be an individual trust or institution. One thing I want to talk about is on the trust. In my experience with us, as well as all the other 529 plans I've spoken with, a trust, it can be any type of trust. There's not a specific type that it has to be. So for our organization, for example, we just require the title page, the page showing who is the agents on the account or the trustees, and the signature page. We don't manage it. We don't make sure it's supposed to be handled like it's supposed to, the fiduciary part of it. We just handle the administrative part of it. Another trend that we have typically seen is we only allow one account owner, which is most 529 plans, I think, except for one, where we might have grandma owns the account, grandpa is the primary successor, and the trust is the secondary successor. So that way they can still manage it individually for some state tax benefits that we'll talk about later on, like in Georgia and other things. So some things to consider. Others I've seen it where maybe grandma or grandpa are primary, son or daughter are the secondary successor or primary successor, as well as a trust. We've also seen it where trusts might own it for all of the grandkids and they pick the one responsible son or daughter to manage it because there's the other son or daughter that isn't quite as responsible and they don't want to do that. So a lot of options there. I think we can maybe take a couple questions on that here in a second if somebody has it. One of the other big misconceptions we have is on beneficiaries. It is pretty broad of how it can be transferred. We just listed a few here, but there's quite a few. It can be stepbrothers, stepsisters, half sisters, etc. So as long as it's a member of the family. So an example, if you really like the person that's mowing the lawn mowing your lawn and you want to set up something for them and something happens and it goes sideways, you're unfortunately going to have to transfer that to a member of your lawnmower's family. So that scenario where if you're trying to make a goodwill gesture and do something for somebody that might need it, that's something you'll have to take into consideration of the transferring of that. And again, this is really weird for me to do this, not seeing the interaction of everybody, so I apologize. A lot of the 529 plans do not have a minimum contribution amount. We don't have one. I think Georgia has a $25 amount. Anyone can contribute to the account. So you're seeing a lot of fintechs as well as the 529 plans trying to get a lot in, especially this time of year, the gifting. And what I meant by gifting is more of a gift for the holidays, gift for a present, etc. So that's one thing that makes it flexible. I'm getting a little bit older up there in age, and it's interesting to me to see how much people really, the young generation coming out of college or just having new kids, are not afraid to ask, hey, why don't you just put money into a 529 account for my kid, or post it up on social media, or send that out. I don't know. I'm just in that mindset where I don't do that, but people are not afraid to do that these days. So something to keep in mind. Every 529 plan is required to have a maximum contribution or maximum account balance. What this means, for my 529, it's $500,000 in 2020. It'll go up in 2021. In Georgia, it's $235,000. So at my 529, I believe all those set that is Congress gave us some direction, but not a lot, saying every state or every 529 plan should set a maximum limit for the cost of higher education for undergraduate and graduate. So what happens is each state is interpreted that slightly different. We are in Utah, but we have accounts from around the country. So we have taken the approach of taking the most expensive schools across the country. And that is what the cost is for undergraduate and graduate at the 10 most expensive schools. And it's at $500,000. Georgia, I'm not sure what their formula has been, but they have it at $235,000. So what that means is the balance can, once it reached that amount, it can continue to grow. You just cannot make it ongoing contributions. So we usually will see if somebody's right at that 500,000 that drops to 470 with the market, they'll hurry and throw some more money in there for it before it gets back up to the limit. So it will then have more basis, we'll say it, for it to appreciate. And so with that, Malik, if you, before I jump to the next slide, I saw on my screen a question popped up, but I did not have a chance to.
Yes, no worries. I can read it to you. Do you want to address it now?
Yeah, that's great.
All right. So regarding the lawnmower person, what do you mean when you say the relationship goes sideways?
Just meaning that you really had a lot of faith in that lawnmower, that he does such a great job, and you want to make sure you see them succeed, and you want to set up a 529 account for them to put money in because they're going to go to college. Then all of a sudden they just have no desire. They're not interested in doing anything. You decide to pull that money back or not continue to save for that young child or that person mowing your lawn. That's now going to be a non-qualified withdrawal, or you've got to transfer that 529 account to one of the lawnmower's family members. So what I meant sideways is just that relationship, or you just don't have that same confidence in saving for that lawn, that individual is mowing the lawn. So hopefully that answered that.
All right.
All right, qualified higher education expenses. This is always a very fun one. So this is where it starts getting a little fun. So the traditional ones are room, board, if you're going 3/4 time, fees, computers, internet, other peripherals to attend, anything that's required to attend the university. or community college, etc. No, it does not include travel. No, it does not include, I used to always say the keg of beer, but again, with COVID, we're not supposed to be all gathering. So again, I don't know how that applies anymore. It does not count for living at home and counting the expenses that would be at home. I had an interesting question. Now it's been probably 6 months ago now. Amazing how time flies, about health insurance on campus. What if they require that? And that's when COVID was starting to hit. Well, if it's a required fee of the university, or it's a fee of the university, or you pay the university, I would think that would fall into that. You know, that's my interpretation of that. But if it's your own health insurance, no, it would not. So the fees is really having it pay through the university is the key angle to look at that. This includes study abroad, as long as you're paying the university. Again, COVID's changing this dynamic so much. There probably somebody thinking about this right now. I thought about this as I was reviewing the presentation again last night. Well, now you've got a individual, a student living at home, but with COVID, they're doing a lot more of the Zoom meetings and the internet. So can I charge that internet right now from home? I don't know. It's just so fluid on that equation. I don't know how you define that. Maybe if you put it in their name and do that, COVID has definitely created a couple unique situations there. It does not include application fees, applying for the universities, and so forth. So the key on the qualified higher education expenses, if you really are paying the university, that is where it will, you should be okay. Couple things to remember on that. When 529 plans make disbursements, if they make it to the account owner will receive a 1099-Q. If the disbursement is made to the beneficiary or the university, it will go to the beneficiaries. The 1099-Q social will go to there. It's just a reporting mechanism. All you do is really staple the receipts behind it and put it in the box with your taxes. You don't have to even add it to the tax return. If somebody is using, let's call it a Quicken or something like that, it does get a little bit scary for some of them because they have to enter the 1099-Q, jacks up their tax liability until they enter the expenses when they get into the deduction part of it. So we usually get phone calls in January, February. People are freaking out about that. It's just the process that they've done it. The key to remember on that is just hang on to the receipts. I talked about this a little bit, where these can be used, but one thing I want to spend some time on really is apprenticeships. That is new in the last 18 months or so, and that is a big trend that is happening across the country right now. Typically, people were looking at 529 plans would be going to a community college or UCLA, University of Florida, University of Georgia, Auburn. We got to throw both those in, right, for both sides of the fans over there. Maybe, but also we would say it went to cosmetology school or welding school or the community college that specializes in that. But apprenticeships also has just popped up, and we're seeing a lot of the trend right now across the country where people are saying, well, maybe higher education is not for me. College is not for me. I want to get into one of these jobs right away, and it makes pretty good money. And so this apprenticeship is really gaining some traction. And we, as an organization, 529 plans and where advisors could help on that is to help understand that apprenticeships actually plays into this. These trade schools, et cetera, because that really is going to be a trend. If you just put your feeler out there and look at it, you'll see that trend is starting to percolate more and more. People just don't want to pay the high cost of going to the university. They're not getting the experience because of COVID, et cetera. So I could see this getting a lot more traction. K through 12 we talked about. Another one that happened at the same time as apprenticeships is the student loans. So 529 plans can pay $10,000 of a student loan per beneficiary across all 529 plans. So I'll bring that up again from a different perspective. If you have an account here at My529 and you have one in Georgia, 2 of them, you cannot pay $10,000 from each one. You have to it's $10,000 total. That's for the beneficiary, but it's also for the beneficiary's family members. So that could be for the brother or sister that have outstanding loans. As far as I know, it's not really clear on how that happens. The best thing to do is probably have the check cut to the account owner. Just keep the student loan payment of that $10,000 with that in case anything ever comes up and asked about that. There's not programming made it put out there where little Johnny has a 529 account and then it's being made to Susie and Sarah and so forth, because we don't have their socials. We don't have brother and sister socials, et cetera. So probably easier just to make it to the account owner and keep that documentation there for it. So for the future. And with that, I see you have another question, Malik, if you want to take that.
Yes. So for student loan payments, the 529 plan beneficiary does not have to match the student loan holder.
That is correct. That is correct. And so it's a little bit unique. So let's, I'll try to go through another example maybe to help for this question. So I own an account in Georgia and I own it for my son, Tate. And I have another son, Cooper. Tate has some leftover money, or I just need to use the money. Cooper has loans of $20,000. I can actually take out just ask for a withdrawal from Georgia's 529 plan. I would basically make my $10,000 payment towards Cooper, which is not in Georgia's name. Georgia has no idea Cooper even exists. And I would basically put the payment behind it and save it for future reference. So again, the programs don't really have a lot of programming put in place for that. And so I would just make it to the account owner and just keep the documentation. So hopefully that helped. If not, please clarify that and I'm happy to answer that a little bit closer. Actually, these questions going out throughout, it's actually working better than I thought. So if you have any questions during it, please throw those out there. It's going smoother than I thought.
Yes, no worries. I think we had like 2 that were submitted prior. So I guess I can.
Yeah, let's jump in those.
We'll kind of walk through the presentation some more, and then.
Are you sure, or do you want to do those right now?
Oh yeah, okay. So one of them was, what is your response to individuals who feel that public colleges will be free, like in states like New York? Should we still get a 529, I guess, or what does that play a part in? I guess what's your thoughts?
Yeah, great question on that. And we've actually gotten asked that question for a few years, and I may have a spot in my later on in the presentation, but I think we should go ahead and address it now. Where the question has typically come up in the past, it has been slightly different, but I think we can tie the question that was presented as well as the question I'm going to present right now. Well, what happens if they get a scholarship? And what happens if, a full ride academically or sports, et cetera? Well, usually those scholarships don't include fees, books, other scenarios. So it might, what really is the definition of a full ride these days? Is it just the tuition? Does it include room, but not, food or fees, et cetera? So when you get, so that's, and then going to the other part of the question is, well, how is that going to play out for free education? Usually what we hear over the years has been more towards community college. Maybe hasn't been tied to the full 4 years. There's a discussion of about maybe forgiving some of the student loan debt. I think it was even $10,000. So is 529s impacted by that? Don't know, that's kind of premature. But to maybe be short on that answer, I would propose that even if it's going to be free tuition at the university, community college, is it going to be 100%? Are they going to pay for the food? Are they going to pay for the internet? Are they going to pay for the books? Are they going to pay for the fees, the health insurance, et cetera? So something to consider. And after that, it's kind of political.
We have another question from the field. Student loans can be paid down after student has graduated?
Yes.
All right. Oh, that was in the chat. That's why that was in the chat.
Oh.
All right. Awesome.
I can't, I gotta be careful how I say this without giving advice. Yes, answer that. So if you decide you wanted to leave your money in the 529 plan to invest longer, you still have the opportunity to pay $10,000 later to pay off the student loan.
Oh, okay. All
And I
right.
think we've got smart people that will connect the dots on that. All right. Any more questions before we jump to the next slide?
No, go ahead.
All right. All right. Let's talk about the federal tax benefits. So again, these are exempt from federal income tax as long as they're used for those higher education expenses we talked about. Again, they always call them qualified higher education expenses. They did not change the definition term on that. And so that when they say qualified higher education expenses, that is still K through 12 and student loans, still applies in there. So the accounts are held outside the taxable estate and they're treated as a completed gift. This is one thing that has made Treasury uneasy, 529 plans, because this is one of the only products where you can make a completed gift and the owner still has direction of how to invest it and what to do. I think Treasury has gotten more comfortable since they're about 20, 25 years now, 529 plans. They were really concerned about that there might be abuse there and they're not really seeing it. So I think that that issue's gone away. One of the unique benefits on a 529 plan is that you're able to make a 5-year election. So we're here in 2020, and instead of making the annual gift that we have down here, you could be making a 5-year election. And what that means is you basically make the election today, and then 5 years into the future, or 4 more years into the future, you can't make any more gifts, obviously, but you're now able to take advantage of the growth in the 529 plan and use that for your advantage. So if somebody has the means to do that, they can make a 5-year election today and take advantage of it. One thing that, as I mentioned at the very beginning of the presentation, a tip and a trick that we're seeing right now, if you have a client that is in that situation, we would propose for consideration of not making the 5-year election today. We would propose to think about making the 1 year, 15,000 or 30,000 today at November 20th. And then on January 3rd, make the 5-year election for 2021 through 2026. So now from November 20th to January 3rd, we'll call it that month and a half, you've been able to actually make 6 years of contributions out of the estate or into out of the estate into the 529 plan. Sometimes when I explain that, it goes really clearly. Sometimes it's a little confusing. So if somebody wants me to explain that a different way, please let me know. I'm happy to do that and explain that a different way. While waiting for that, just to see if that comes through. Another thing to note on this is if the individual passes away during that 5-year period in the future, what it does is it will get pulled back into the estate for the remaining years that are left in that. So anything that's already been completed would be not rolled back into the estate. Seeing no questions on the federal level, we'll move to the state. We have this US map here. If somebody is interested in this, we're happy to send them out. This little one sheet that we have is a PDF. These is how the state tax benefits are across the country. So there's about 6 or 7 things that as an advisor you should look at when you're considering the 529 plan for your client. And I'll go through those. The first one here is talking on state tax benefits. So obviously we know Florida, Texas, Nevada, Washington, et cetera, don't have state income tax. But then there's also 2 states right now, California and North Carolina, that do have state income tax liability for their residents, but they do not offer a state tax benefit. So on any of those states, if you live in one of those states, you can go and shop what's the best 529 plan for you. If you're in one of the green states, it's what we call the industry tax parity. So if I have a client that lives in Arizona and they want to use the Georgia 529 plan, they can do that and they will still get an Arizona state tax deduction. Or if they live in Missouri and contribute to the Nevada plan, they will still get a state tax deduction. If you live in one of the gray states, that is where they do have a state tax benefit. So you should always look at that state first to see what benefits that provides. Now, some of them are better than others. So for example, New York and Colorado have a $10,000 state tax deduction. Georgia has a great state tax deduction at $4,000 for a single, $8,000 for a married filing joint or couple per beneficiary. Again, some states are per beneficiary, some are per tax return. So that would be another thing that you want to look at. So Georgia's in a great situation with 4,000 and 8,000. So you multiply that by the tax rate, and that would be your tax savings. So that's one thing to take into consideration. The formula people usually ask me is, well, should we take advantage of the state tax benefits or not? We can't hand out the formula, but really here's the formula. Age of the beneficiary, how much you're contributing, meaning the state tax benefit, and how many, and the fees of the plan. Because remember, the state tax deduction is a one-time deduction. Are those going to get eaten away at a plan that you choose that's a double, triple than the Georgia plan or another plan that chips away at that benefit? And if the beneficiary is very young, that can eat itself away. If the beneficiary is older, well, you don't really have that situation where the fees can chip away at that benefit as long, that state tax benefit as long. And so that's something to take into consideration. So it's really that triple effect. Again, age of the beneficiary, state tax benefit, and the fees.
And Troy, is that something that you guys do the analysis on? I know you guys do an analysis, that part of it.
Yeah, we actually, we will do, that's a great point. We will not do the analysis down to the formula that I just gave you, but we do analysis. So let's say you have, this is a unique situation here where I'm presenting for Georgia, and Georgia has a great state tax benefits and great fees that we'll talk about here in a minute. And so I really can't say much Georgia's got a great plan, and there's a couple things to consider, but a great plan. But maybe all of your clients aren't in Georgia. Maybe you've got them in South Carolina and Michigan. Things are changing, right? With the world, people have clients all around the country. We are happy to do analysis for you of the plans. And what I mean by that is, what are the fund companies? What are the expense ratios? What are the age bands? State tax benefits, et cetera. And so we literally have a sheet of a comparison where for you, I'm going to call it your due diligence a little bit, where you'll just double check it, but let us do the hard work for you and giving you all the information on a sheet of paper. Most of them go and just double check it. We literally give you the page number of the program description so you can go verify it, or the prospectus, and then you've got your due diligence to be part of your decision making.
Okay, a few more tax questions too that came in.
Absolutely.
Number one, you said that you will be sending out this sheet, or can you send out this sheet to us and we'll get it to the people that was on the attendee?
Sure. Yeah, I'll send it to you, Malik, and then we can send it to those that are on it. We don't really post it on our website for this massive public distribution, so maybe not to the entire Georgia group, but those that are on the call or this video, absolutely, we'll send it to you. So
all right, awesome.
Send it to you, and then you can distribute it.
All right, awesome. And there's another question here: tax consequences of son's 529 plan, of which he is beneficiary, is transferred to his daughter. So I guess what's the tax consequences of the transfer going, I guess, from one child to the other? I think that's
okay. So I'll just phrase the question right to make sure I got it right, understand right. I own the account for my son, and he doesn't go to school for whatever reason. Can I transfer it to my daughter?
Yeah. Correct. And then what's the tax consequences on
100%. No tax. Well, that is correct. Now we're getting into a little bit of it. So let me, and if that individual wants to talk offline, please email me. I'm going to keep this a little bit high level because we could probably spend the rest of the time on this question. From a 529 perspective, absolutely 100%, no problem transferring that. That's all the 529 rules, absolutely. If it's a smaller balance, no problem. But if it's a larger balance, that could be treated as getting into the gifting situation. So remember, going back to that treasury comment I made a little bit earlier, it's a completed gift. So when you put this money into the 529 plan for the son, and all of a sudden they don't go to school, that's a completed gift. If you change it over to the daughter, in reality, the son has gifted the daughter the money. Because remember, they're completed gifts. You just happen to be the administrator over it. So I'm going to stop there, but it can get kind of technical and we can't give too much advice, but I can definitely walk through the scenarios there for you guys to consider. If there's more than one, happy to set up a little call on that. But as long as it's not into that big dollar amounts, the 30,000s, the 150,000s, there's not an issue. Transferred over, no big deal. It's one form for us, and it just transfers the beneficiary immediately.
All right, awesome. That's a great point. Thank you.
Great. All right. This ties into the next point a little bit of what people were, some of the questions that came up here is what happens if we don't use the funds? So in a scenario here, the key part I wanted to recognize on this is that there's times where it happens. Financial situations with COVID or something that's happening, or you just got to use it, or it's just not right, or you have leftover funds that you can't transfer it over to another child, etc. One thing that, in fact, I read an article on Motley Fool this week. They actually didn't state it right. They said it was 10% on the withdrawal. It's 10% on the earnings. So it's just like a retirement situation, you would have to pay the 10% penalty on the earnings. Also, I know Georgia has this rule, and then we do as well. You would have to recapture any state tax deductions that you took, and there's a formula for that. The exceptions on that are over on the right-hand side. The key that we usually bring up is on the receipt of a scholarship. So it's up to the amount. So if you happen to have a child, a grandchild that receives that state tax benefit, or sorry, that scholarship, I would seriously consider taking the money out of the 529 plan and then put it into something else up to that scholarship dollar amount. Yes, you're going to still pay federal and state income taxes on it. If you took it out and paid it to the beneficiary, it's going to be at the beneficiary's tax rate. Again, I think most people will be able to pick up on that if I repeat that. If the withdrawal goes to the beneficiary gets the 1099-Q, which has the tax rate. So take the money out of the scholarship amount to the beneficiary and then invest it somewhere else. Saw a question pop up.
Yes, they're asking about your contact information. You really piqued some interest about that gift taxing scenario that you.
I don't want to get their hopes up because there's not too much I can share, but at least we can talk some context, or at least give some background on that. So happy to do that.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm assuming you have your information at the end of this
I
slide.
do, and maybe I'll have to make them stay on longer. I'll give you all my personal contact information as well.
All right. Excellent. Great.
You can do that, but happy to do that this time. All right. Financial aid. This is so fun. I'm going to let everybody read through this for a quick second, and then I will start laying out the background on this. On these scenarios here, I'm going to assume that it's a $10,000 account balance at My529 or the Georgia's 529 plan. I'll use Georgia's, right? Not to be biased. Use the Georgia 529 plan. You do the FAFSA form, and there's another form as well that is getting a little bit more traction with the private universities. And based on that calculation, they call it an ESC, expected family contribution. Let's say the university, trade school, community college, whatever it is, says we're going to give you a $5,000 financial aid award. So a $10,000 account balance at the Georgia 529 plan and a $5,000 award from the university. They will look at the 529 plan and say, oh, you have $10,000. We're going to go ahead and deduct your award by 5.64% or $564. So now your award from the university is going to be $4,436 plus your $10,000 529 plan that you have. So some people have said, I've heard it a few times. Again, I have a different mentality, but I understand where they're coming from. Why do I want to save money? Why do I want to save $10,000 when I'm going to hurt myself $564? It's going to hurt me on receiving my award. Well, my stance is well, you got a 2-year-old. Do you know you're going to get that benefit? Do you know what you're going to have? Again, just different thought process. If it's a student-owned account, UGMA, UTMA. So remember, those are set up. You can put those in. Those can be invested however you want, whatever mutual funds, different fund companies, etc. If you decide to bring it into a 529 plan, you get the state tax benefit. You get the tax deferred growth benefit. and don't have to pay those taxes because there's tax deferred, ultimately tax free. The catch on that is it dings you at a 20% mark. So again, that $5,000 financial aid award now is a, you have $10,000 Georgia 529 account. That means it hurt you $2,000. So your award went from $5,000 down to $3,000. So UGMAs, UTMAs still hurt you. So one thing to consider is if you think you can use that UGMA or UTMA funds in high school and other school or other needs, I would look at doing that. I would also look at, depends on the balance, I guess. If it's a larger balance, that might be tougher to do, but there is certain limits, obviously, of how much you can contribute to those UGMA, UTMAs. So just want to throw that out there, where if you think you can use it before the student hits the college, again, I always use college or university, but hopefully we all know, I beat that to death already, the other options, to kind of get that out of the way. The third one is accounts owned by third party. And I specifically put third party because this is grandparent, uncle, other scenarios. Because remember, above that is defined with parent and student. So this is kind of captures everything else. But also you could get thrown in here is young beneficiary also working. So there is no asset rule. What I would call those top two ones, the parent and the student, is the asset formula, right? The 5.64% and the 20%. On the account owned by a third party, there is no asset rule. There's basically an income rule or disbursement rule. So I'm a sophomore in college. Grandpa writes me a check for $10,000 from the Georgia 529 plan to pay for my college. Great. Next time when I go apply for financial aid, it's going to say, okay, there's no assets, right? No parent, no student. Great. Oh, you received an unearned benefit from a 529 plan from your grandpa. Great. Uncle. Great. Oh, you had a job. Great. That's a 50% hit. So now 50% on 10,000 is 5,000. You received a $5,000 award from the university. I'm sorry, you don't have any state tax. I'm sorry, you don't have any benefit from the university. So you get zero award. So what we have seen people do is under President Obama, he changed the FAFSA rules where it was a 2-year look back. Before it was a 1-year look back. So what we're seeing happen is if people have it owned by a grandparent or uncle or other third party, they don't use those withdrawals until the junior or senior year of college. Therefore, they don't have to do the 2-year look back and have that accounted for. One thing you have to keep in mind though is graduate school. If they're going to apply for graduate school, that would still go and hit them, obviously, when they get to graduate school, which is even more expensive, but same formula in place. So when you see those media articles out there, that's where it gets tough saying, oh, grandparents should never save because it's going to cause you a problem. Well, yeah, it might cause you a problem if it's the first or second year, but not the later years. So as you know, media has to be very concise with what they can say. And so that gets spun a little bit differently. So just wanted to throw that out there for everybody. If there's questions, I'm happy to answer those. There usually are. If not, we can do it offline as well. But really, third party owned, grandparent, uncle should be taken in the later years of college is the way to remember that.
And Troy, does that same theory hold true for the trust accounts, the UTMAs, and with the income from an income standpoint? So based on your scenario before, they would have to do that or try to spend that before the senior year of high school?
Yes. Sorry, I'm saying yes because I know I got another scenario. That is correct.
Okay.
Most 529 plans, though, allow ownership changes and beneficiary changes on their plans. So to keep that in mind of how you want to treat that as well. I'll let people think about that. So again, you can change ownership and change beneficiaries that play into all of this. This one we won't have to spend too much time on. It just talks about rollovers, changing it to a different beneficiary, et cetera. Pretty straightforward. So a little bit about My529 that was kind of talked about a little bit before. What I want to highlight on this slide, and I'll go a little quick because I know we're going to start getting short here on time, is we've been fortunate to have Morningstar's independent ranking as a top rated plan for 10 years in a row, which is actually the only 529 plan. So it's kind of exciting to see that. And that's kind of my little boasting on that. I apologize on it, but it's been a lot of hard work. It's every year something has to do it. I mean, it's a rigorous process. So we're excited about that. But the thing I bring that up because I got 7 items that I think everybody should look at as an advisor on 529 plans. And I'll run through them real quickly. And I've talked about some of them, but one is the independent rankings. How are they rated? But again, there's different criteria. So take that with a grain of salt. Number 2, and I'm going to talk about it on the next slide, but right here of our fund managers. Georgia uses TIA CREF. Virginia College America uses American funds. You've got other ones out there, the Vanguards and others, et cetera. Does that line up with your firm? Does that line up with your methodology? So you need to look at that so you can have that consistent message. Another one, I'm going to back up a slide a little bit, is on the age-based options. What are the allocations? What are the equity exposures? So for example, we are at 10% equities at 19 plus, 19 years of age and older. Some are 25, some are 0. What's the fixed income allocations? What's the duration on those? You know, back in 2008, some got burned because they thought they were totally safe because it was all fixed income, but the duration was off. And so something to keep in mind. How much are you able to customize it? What access do you have? Obviously the state tax benefits we talked about and some of the features and enhancements. So those are things that's something to keep in mind when you're looking at a 529 plan, because they all seem similar, but at the same time, there's some underlying things that might help you with your exposure of your firm as well as your selling point that align with what you think about. A little bit about us on the fees. Here's our fee structure. Georgia's is 18 basis points to 31 basis points all in using TIA funds. That's a great fund, great expense ratio lineup. So you just need to look at all the various states and see what their expense ratios are. And they're starting to come down more and more, especially on the direct sold plans, but something to keep in mind, again, going back to that formula that I mentioned earlier. One thing that we've tried to do, and then Malik talked about this a little bit, is we noticed about 8 years ago that their RIAs were not being supported. You have the advisor sold programs and you have the direct sold programs. And so I led up an effort trying to support the RIAs. One of these things, again, that you should need to consider is what level of information is the 529 plan giving to you for your clients? We noticed that some had 0 access, some had pretty good access, some different levels. So we've created these 3 levels that you can decide what kind of relationship you want to have with your clients on the accounts, from a view only all the way up to withdrawals. In this scenario, we've also tried to address custody at a certain point. You're never allowed to change the demographic information on the accounts. You can't change the beneficiary, you can't change the owner, email, phone number, address, etc. Again, we don't get into custody. Happy to talk offline about that, but we just try to make it a little bit easier for you. We have about 1,200 firms that use this across the country, and we have about 1,400 different definitions of custody. Everybody's got their own, and it's just crazy. This is one thing that's very unique that we have created, but you can kind of do it with other 529 plans in a roundabout way. We have created the ability for you to create your own, in essence, target date fund. We didn't do a very good job on this presentation, but these are our age bands down below: 0 to 3, 4 to 6, 7 to 9, and then they get 2-year age bands and then 1-year age bands. We're at 10% equities at 19 plus. You could decide, I want to be 25. I want to be more exposure into small cap. I want to be more fixed income, this duration. So any of the funds that we offer, you can create your own portfolio for your client and have a customized template and save that template down at the bottom and apply it to your clients over and over. So once you do a little bit of work with your investment committee, set it up. We have firms that have 3 or 4 templates. We can do unlimited, and just you can apply that over and over. So now you've got consistency. You don't have any firms or clients that fall through the cracks. About a year ago, we had somebody that the firm unfortunately had to write a check for about $14,000 because they accidentally put them in FDIC when the market was going up, and it fell through the cracks. So you've got some consistency going on there. So we help with those firms that work with us showing those stuff just to make sure that that's how they want it to be, to help avoid those. A few pop up here and there, but it at least helps minimize that risk. But really the key is you provide extra customer service. So keep that in mind of how do you provide that extra service to your clients than just the traditional, oh, hey, go use the Georgia plan and put it in aggressive global. and I'm going to charge you, or I'm not going to charge you. Some have asked, what do you do? How do you charge that? I'd say 50% of the time I get asked, do people charge or not? I would say my pulse is about 25 or 30% charge. But what value are you providing for that fee, for that charge? Something to just consider. Again, we're agnostic if you charge or not. In a direct sold plan, you cannot take fees out of the 529 plan to cover, or sorry, for the fees to cover for you. We have tried to solve that with 2 birds with 1 stone. One is by putting it into a data integration. So these are the companies we work with and so we import our funds into those, or the accounts into those every night. So you see the balances. So the advantage is you're able to bring your comprehensive balance sheet to your client that includes the 529 accounts versus just, oh, here's all the other accounts, and then here's that statement for the 529 plan. Gets the equities exposure, the fixed income, et cetera. The other thing with these providers is you're able to mark the box to say, yes, include this in my AUM that I want to charge on. You can't pull the fees out of the 529 plan, but you can mark it as a billable asset and then have it come out of your other accounts that are billed on, be it a brokerage account, checking account, et cetera. Most of the time people have said, I'm not going to charge. People get very sensitive as when it comes to grandkids and kids' money. And so I've seen a lot of times we don't charge, we provide this as an extra service. Our goal at that perspective is to support you to make your life easy as possible, to make you look good with minimal amount of work, or to make you look good to justify charging the fee. So both ways, we've kind of left that open. Here's our contact information. If you guys have any questions. So this team, Katie heads up this team. They are there to support the firms. This is all their job is to support the 1,200 firms. From onboarding, pre-filling the paperwork for rollovers, answering questions that tie to the advisor level. Again, we have a great operations team that does the day-to-day, opening accounts, et cetera, but getting you onboarding, understanding it, integrated, data feeds, special project. We literally will fill out the paperwork for the rollovers. We have a process to do that. And so really it's our team to help be there for you. Someone asked about my contact information. So you can see that at my529.org. If you just do my first initial T and my full last name at my529.org is my email. So if anybody has questions or wants to talk, we can set up a meeting for that. But also mostly I wanted to just highlight that we're here. Obviously we believe in My529. It's a great product, but we know flat out My529 is not the best option in every case. Georgia has a great 529 plan. Georgia has a great state tax benefit. They've got great fees. So likely Georgia's going to be the winner. And we're not afraid to say that, because going back to that slide, you'll see half the states you can choose. And so we fare pretty well in those. And so again, I think Linkley, you brought this up. We're happy to have that conversation. By no means would I ever want anybody to feel like we are trying to sell it, because in the end, it's really just bettering the kids, grandkids, et cetera, and giving that. And in the long run, it works out. It's pretty evident what plan works. So I always throw that out there. If there's anything I can ever help with, answer questions, just have a discussion, dial a friend, that TV show, and just, we're happy to be that resource. Even if you're not using us, we're happy to give that information, background, quick question. Cause a lot of time it's, where do I go to even get it? Happy to share that with you. So I will turn it over to see if there's any other questions before I do a last wrap up.
Yeah, I don't see any that's new that's come in thus far.
Okay.
I think we answered a good portion of it. We did have one more question regarding the limited power of attorney and how you guys do that. So you've answered that. You've answered that question in one of your last slides.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. Well, as we were preparing this slide deck, I thought this was very humorous. So before I go to the humorous at the very end, in all sincerity, if you don't use us, call me, call us. We're happy to help. Really, it would just be to be there. So hopefully you understand that we really do want to be that resource for people, regardless if you use us or not. So if you ever have any questions or something comes to mind, please reach out. Happy to help. And I wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. But at the end here, we decided to do a promotion period. And as we did this, I thought it was really funny. We're doing a promotion for this group here. So it's a $20 match, 20 for 20 in 2020. from November 20th to December 20th, 2020. And so I literally had to go back and say, now we have 2011 FPAGA. Shouldn't it be 2020? Do we have a typo? No, that's how the system generated it. It was 2011. So just par for the course. Everything's 2020, 2020, except for the actual code itself. So any new account that you set up and throw $20 in between that period of time, unlimited, just has to be new beneficiary, share it, friends, family, all your clients, etc. Just use that code, and we're happy to throw that out there. So,
Oh, that's awesome, man. That's pretty cool.
so with that, I wanted to just say thank you. I hope everybody has a weird but great Thanksgiving. It's different times, but I hope everybody is safe and sane, and I wish you the best for all the holidays, and thanks for the opportunity to speak with you today.
Troy, thank you. You know, this was an amazing presentation. I've, you know, a lot of advisors think that maybe, you know, learning about a presentation like this might be too elementary, if you will. And I think that you touched on some areas that really piqued a lot of folks' interest from that standpoint. The estate planning, the taxes, and the comparing the states and things of that nature. As more advisors are going beyond just the state of Georgia, I think that you provided a lot of great information from that standpoint. And this is really cool from a matching perspective. You know, I think that's a great benefit to give to our clients. And yes, you had somebody else here that said, thank you so much. Great presentation, Victoria. And thank you guys all for coming. And thank you, Troy, and your partnership with us. And we will definitely be calling on you guys again for next year. I mean, this was just invaluable from that perspective.
And if anybody has any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. More than happy to help.
Yes. So one thing that I learned in my practice is that although the state of Georgia does have a lot of great benefits, you guys, from an assistance, from a planning or just guidance, you know, things of that nature, for more high level topics or planning needs, you guys are definitely easier, more accessible, and can help from that standpoint. That's one thing that our place, our current 529 plan does lack. So you guys are outstanding from that standpoint.
Thank you.
Without further ado, guys, I think that's it. I think this is a wrap for our last presentation for 2020. Please come out, if you're a member, come out to our member appreciation event in December, and we look forward to enjoying an amazing magic show with you. And thank you so much, and thank you once again, Troy. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Take care.